Let's try again, shall we? So, tell us that you're here. Okay. Tell us that you're here. Tell us that you're online. Tell us where you're from. Tell us what you want to get from this webinar. So we're going to talk about a lot of very powerful stuff on this webinar. But let's get started by talking about something that's I'm very, very, very proud of. And that is, in the last 12 months, 82% of my private mastermind clients, move that around, 82% of my private mastermind clients achieved their best year ever. In other words, they achieved their best results ever in financial, in revenue, or in profit terms, which is no mean feat, right? They persevered, and we're going to talk about how they did that, and more importantly, how you can do the same. All right, so what we're going to talk about in this webinar, we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to talk about the RADA method, which previously, prior to this webinar, had only been shared with my £10,000 a year plus, there's different price points, but all in excess of £10,000 a year, mastermind clients. And you're going to get it on this webinar now, right here, to make 2018 your best year. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the RADA method. We're going to talk about 4 strategies for rapid growth. But ultimately, it boils down to this. You're going to get, my slide deck has gone all messed up now. You're going to get more revenue, more profit, and more time. Okay? Because when it boils down to it, the only reason we want revenue is to drive more profit. And the only reason we want to have more profit is so you can expand the business, so you can reach more people, and ultimately get better results. You want a business that's not dependent upon you. Who is this for? Okay, I'm trying a new platform. It's not really working too well for me. I'm getting all mixed up here. Let me try. Here we go. Who is this for? This is for established business owners doing at least a few multi-6-figure revenue or 7-figure revenue. They're ambitious, that are looking to grow. But really who it's for is it's for students. If you're on this webinar right now, I was just at my office building, and we have a large office building with 20 or 30 different businesses in that office building. Earlier today I popped in to pick up a spare monitor so I can see myself without sounding too vain, see what you guys are seeing on this webinar. And there was only one car there. And I think that whilst I'm a big fan of taking time off, I also think that you should engineer your business in a way that you love it. You know, I'm here doing this webinar because I want to be doing it. I want to be here with you, and I'm passionate for growth. I'm passionate to learn more. You know, who this webinar is not for is it's not for startups, it's not for people looking to get rich quick, and it's not for people looking for the easy button, okay? I don't think it exists. I don't think the easy button exists. I think there can be strategies, I think there can be tactics that can radically accelerate the results that you're getting in your business right now, and I'm in favor of those, but I think too often we look for the shortcut, and it never produces results. So I'm very proud that one of my private mastermind clients recently bought another business, bought his biggest competitor, and his company went from 1.5 million to between 4 and 5 million overnight. And it's a tremendous success story of how he came about it. And he said, Dan, it was an overnight success story that's taken me about 5 years. And the reality is, I think you've got to become a student of business if you want to really progress, if you want to really learn, if you want to really get better results. So, now you know who it's for and who it's not for. If you want to talk about how to have your best year in business ever, I think a good question is, why do most businesses fail? In other words, we're going to talk about things that allow your business to accelerate its growth, but I think it's worthwhile saying, well, why do most businesses fail? I assure you right now, if you ask any small business owner, or certainly the vast majority of them, what their ambitions are for the next 12 months, the vast majority are looking for revenue growth, they're looking for profit growth, they're looking for an easier business, they're looking for more time off, all maybe of which are worthy goals. But if you rewound the clock 12 months and you look at the results today, the vast majority of business owners don't get anything like those results. And I think an important question that you've got to ask yourself is, why not? What is preventing them from getting the results they want? And I think normally if you ask business owners, what did you have the year that you wanted, why not, they give you all kinds of excuses. And I think what needs to happen, first and foremost, is stop defending your shitty business model. Right? I think a lot of business owners are defending a shitty business model that is functionally defunct. It just doesn't work. Right? Here are the top 3 reasons I think why most businesses fail to make progress year on year in their business. Number 1, lack of scalable systems. Now, of the 3, this is one which we're not going to go into too much depth on this webinar. We're going to cover the other 2 in great depth. This one I'm just going to give you a brief summary. So I've got a model which I call business value maximization. Whenever I buy a business, I've got a 6-step process that I use to make sure that there is a platform for growth, that there is the business is able to scale quickly. And there's 6 parts to it to make sure you do it in the right order and sequence, because most businesses fail when they're trying to grow. In fact, it's more, statistically, it's more likely that your business will fail trying to grow than it will trying to stay the same. Okay? So that's number 1. I'm going to come touch more on that at the end. Number 2, if I can work my technology, is lack of a profit execution plan. In other words, I think that a lot of people have this idea. Okay, they have this idea of what they want to have happen, and they confuse the goal for the plan, the map. You know, I don't think saying that you're going to go from $500,000 to $1 million in revenue is a plan. I don't think saying that you're going to grow your sales 10% month on month every month is a plan. I think it's a goal. And I think goals are important, but they fail to get into the detail. The devil's always in the detail. Nobody went into this year going, I'm going to have a really shitty year in business. I'm going to really struggle in all these areas and fail to make the profits that I want. The vast majority had ambitions. Some more clearly defined than others, and that is part of it. But ultimately failed to have a detailed profit execution plan. And I think that hurts. I think that hurts an awful lot of business owners, okay? So that's the second reason why most businesses fail. And the third is the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps. Now this is very important. This is a very technical term. I want you to write this down, okay? The 3 Ps stands for piss poor people. Okay, so, you know, if you think about it, especially if you're a service-driven business, but any business, okay, you may have systems, you may have technology, you may have great IP, but the reality is businesses are driven by people. And if you've got poor people, you know, whether it be poor because of their competence, they don't have the skills that keeps them on the cutting edge, or poor in terms of their attitude, their cultural fit, you're going to struggle. It's going to be increasingly painful for you in business. And without those 3, they are the 3 primary reasons why I think most businesses fail. Lack of scalable systems, so they've not got the platform for growth to begin with. Lack of a profit execution plan. They never really detailed it, right? And if you just think about it, if you can't point me to a written down, documented plan of exactly what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, if you can't make it work on paper, what do you think the chances are that you're going to make it happen in reality? right? And that's just so critical. I think so many people, myself included, going back many years, would go, oh, well, you know, I just want to do it and I want to make it happen, but, oh, putting it down on paper, that's so boring. It's so, you know, and I'd never get round to it and I'd put it off. But the reality is, if you cannot make your business stack up on paper to work the way that you want, what are the real chances of you making it happen in reality? Tell me now. I can hear Miles busily tapping away, so it sounds like he's answering your comments. But Miles, feel free to interrupt if there's any good or pertinent questions or I miss any points. But tell us now, what are the chances of making it happen? 0, or close to it, I would suggest. Okay, so that's where most people are at. Let's go down again. And then you're going to get people right. So let's talk about the inverse now. Let's talk about the 3 keys. I'm going to break it into 5 parts actually, but 3 keys to making your most profitable year ever. What's number 1? Number 1 is having a platform for rapid growth. Okay? Having a platform for rapid growth. So this is, oh, I get my screens mixed up. This is about business value maximization. So that I've got 6 steps that I do in this order, where I look to find the low-hanging fruit in any business that I acquire, that I take over, how I look to be able to scale it quickly. I think a lot of businesses have inherent weaknesses within them. I think Bill Gates was right. To paraphrase him slightly, if you attempt to scale an inefficient system, you get chaos, right? So in other words, you have to have the systems in place. You have to have the solidity in place to allow the business to scale quickly. And I think a lot of business owners want to scale quickly when they're not prepared for it. It's metaphorically, it's like trying to lift mega heavy weights when you've never been in a gym before. You're not going to improve yourself, you're going to damage yourself. And I'll touch on how to get more of that at the end, but that's not the main focus of this webinar. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, a clear profit execution plan. Okay, we're gonna dive into this in a little bit of depth. So what does a clear profit execution plan mean? Well, I think most business owners say that they've been in business for you know, I might say they've been in business for years. They've been in business for 10 years. But that's not true. They may chronologically have been around for 10 years, but they don't have 10 years worth of experience. Instead, they've got 1 year's worth of experience 10 times. In other words, they keep doing the same mistakes again and again and again and again and again. You know, they're just barely scraping by. So how do you fix that? Okay? I think there are 5 keys to having a clear profit execution plan. Number 1 is reflect. Okay, I think you need to reflect on what allowed the business to get great results in the first place. Okay, I think you need to reflect about what caused things to go wrong and how do you fix them. You know, one of my clients, Chris, is in the weight loss industry. He does medically supervised weight loss. And he's had radical growth in the last 12 months. You know, it radically improved the revenues and profitability. How did he do it? Well, in simple terms, he reflected and realized what was causing him to make a lot of mistakes was shiny penny syndrome. He was getting distracted by so many different projects rather than focusing down on the core business. And consequently, when he was off trying to chase these other rabbits, these other shiny pennies, he wasn't knuckling down and executing the right things that needed to happen. So that's step 1. I think you've got to reflect what's causing the mistakes to happen and how do you eliminate them, and what caused things to go well. In other words, what are the drivers? What are the critical drivers that created the good and bad results, and how do you learn from that and carry it through into the next year? So that's the R. The A, that's step 2. Step 2 is R, that stands for reflect. Step 2 is A, stands for analyze. In other words, think of the Pareto principle. So, for example, Simon Fisher, who won a competition of mine earlier this year, and I actually flew him my expense, first class and back to New York, and we did some brainstorming, some masterminding to support his business. And he's a very successful estate agent in the southwest of England, and he was looking for expansion, and he reported back that this year's been his best ever. And when I asked him, Simon, what was the difference that made the difference? He said it was focusing down on the high value clients. But really, what I encouraged Simon to do that led him to that conclusion is using the Pareto principle. You know, you guys have heard this. What is the Pareto principle? It stands for the 80-20 rule. In other words, what are the 20% of activities that are producing 80% of the results? Okay, and Simon figured out that he was spending a lot of time chasing over a lot of crappy clients when actually focusing on the best quality clients and the best services for a fraction of the time, generating much more of the profits. So you can focus on the positive and on the negative. In other words, what are the 20% of customers that cause you 80% of the aggravation? What are the 20% of product lines that cause you 80% of the logistical nightmares? And you can focus on the positive. And what are the 20% of products that give you 8% of your profits? What are the 20% of customers that give you 80% of your revenues? What are the 20% of your salespeople that produce 80% of the results? And here's a key when it comes to analysis. I think you need to do it with hard data. I think that a lot of people's ideas of analysis is just confirmation bias. You know, we look to reinforce the opinions and decisions we've already made, and therefore we selectively, unconsciously often, just pick out data that aligns with those beliefs. I think you've got to objectively look at your business model. I remember one of our mastermind clients came to us, and he had in effect two businesses in one. It was one limited company, but it had product A and product B, and he was doing about 2 million in revenue, making a few $100,000 in profit, so it was a little bit tight margin. But when we did a proper analysis of his business model, what we realized, and he was in a construction type business, what we realized was business A was making about £300,000 profit a year, and business B, or product line B, was losing about £100,000. Now, when you just looked at it overall, it seemed like there was a profitable business and the lines were blurry. But when we did the hard analysis of the data, it was very apparent that business B, even though it carried slightly more than half the revenue, was an absolute train wreck. It's where 70% of his time was spent. It's where 95% of the aggravation was spent. It's where all the cash was absorbed. And in effect, he could have been making £100,000 more a year and be working 40 hours less per week. I mean, it's astonishing, but it's not always obvious, because if it was obvious, you would have done it already. So how can you do the analysis with the data? So that's part two. Okay. So RASDA, RASDA, for the profit execution plan. Number one, reflect on what worked, what didn't work, how you can carry the lessons forward so you don't make the same mistakes again. Number two, analysis. Analyze, look for Pareto principle. Number three, set targets. Set targets. In other words, have you got a clear budget for 2018? And if you think about it, right, you don't want revenue. If I said you could double your revenue, but you would halve your profit next year, who would want to do that? Comment now and let me know if you think that would be a brilliant idea. And people will go, no, I want more revenue because it will make more profit. Okay. Well, if you added, say, 750,000 to your revenue in the next 12 months, how much would it add to your bottom line? What's your gross profit margin? What's your cost of goods sold? What's your overhead? Would you need to move to bigger offices? And if the reality is that you have a profit target, the more specific you can be, the better. And profit You know, the only reason a business spends money, only two reasons. It's to get customers, get new customers, or keep the customers that you've got. That's it, okay? That's the only reason your business spends money, ultimately. Directly or indirectly. So, have you got a budget? Because the revenues and the expenses correlate. Because when it comes to a budget and the way you're spending money, there's only three areas. One is customer acquisition cost. There's a cost associated with marketing and selling and acquiring the new customers. Number two is you've got the cost of goods sold, the cost of delivering your goods or services. And number three, there's the overhead cost, the cost of being in business. So can you track it? And can you have a month-by-month breakdown? Right? And this requires some thought. This isn't just plucking a number out of thin air and putting it on a piece of paper. It's actually laying down a spreadsheet and going January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, right? And going all the way through and then thinking about what your revenues are and how much money you're going to have to spend. And, oh, it takes 60 days on average for a lead to become a customer, which means I need to spend the money in January if I'm going to see the revenue in March. You've got to set a clear target. And the fact is, most small business owners don't have budgets. They don't have cash flow forecasts. And I think that is the lack of that financial literacy is one of the primary reasons why they will never become big businesses. And people sometimes say, well, I don't want a big business. Okay. Why they don't become 200-300% more profitable. Why you're working 60-70 hours a week when actually the same business you could be working 30 hours a week and churning out more profit. And it's the lack of financial literacy and aligning it to the target so you can adjust. The numbers are scorecards that give you feedback to whether or not the plan is working. Okay? So that's setting target. So you've got, what do we have so far? We have R stands for reflect, A stands for analyze, S stands for set target, D stands for defining the critical drivers. In other words, you've got the plan. What are the critical drivers? What are the activities that must occur? If they do not occur, you're not going to get the result, right? So the revenue, for example, or the profit is an outcome, which is caused by the revenue being above X and the expenses being below Y. Oh, okay, good. So a simpler example would be to get revenue of X, we need a certain number of new customers to buy at a certain price point. Well, what's the driver of that? Well, we need a certain number of leads generated for a certain cost. Okay, good. Well, what's the driver? What's the critical driver of lead generation? And it might be, well, we've got to place the ads. In other words, if we don't place the ads, if we don't have the marketing budget to spend, if we don't create enough new content, we're not going to generate the leads. Okay, so in that quick made-up example, it might be that you have to be really precise around how much marketing activity, how much content creation needs to occur by when, what platform is it being posted on, how many word articles, how many videos, how long are the videos, what the topic of the videos. And if this is getting really too granular for you, I don't think it needs to be complex. But I do think it needs attention. I do think the reason why most people don't get in shape, to change metaphor, is because they don't watch their diet and they don't go to the gym enough, consistently, right? It's cause and effect. You can't argue with that. So you've got to define what are your critical drivers. What has to happen every day? You know, I had the good fortune of meeting Tim Ferriss, author of the 4-Hour Workweek, one time, and he said one of the things he said was on the topic of becoming an author was do 2 crappy pages per day. He said a lot of people have the illusion that being a successful author is about, you know, doing 8 or 10 hours worth of writing a day. But he made me laugh when he said most authors that he knew spent most of their time trying to invent ways to procrastinate and get out of writing. And he said, I've got a simple rule, and it's 2 crappy pages per day. And sometimes that's all he does, and he throws it in the bin and it never gets used. And sometimes he gets in the flow. But the key is, it happens every single day. So what are your critical drivers? What must you do every single day, or certainly every single week, in order to execute on this plan? And finally, the third A is accountability. Again, I use a fitness metaphor, but I sometimes work out in the gym by myself like I did this morning, and sometimes I work out with a personal trainer or work out with a friend, including Miles, who's in the background, who's in considerably better shape than I am. Why do I do that? It's simple. When I work out with somebody else, I work out much harder. I get more from myself. Let me ask you a question. In fact, comment in the chat box, which I think is to this side, and let me know. Are people, i.e. salaries or contractors, and include yourself in this, the biggest expense category in your business? Is that where the most amount of money gets spent? Okay, I'm seeing some nods. Okay, good. So how much are you spending per month on payroll? And for the contractors, and include yourself, your own monthly draw. Okay, I know you might take it as dividends, but how much are you spending? What percentage of your revenue is that? And for most business owners, that can be pretty chunky. It's 50, 60, 70, 80%. It can depend on the industry, but right, it's normally very sizable. So the thing is, can you spend that money on payroll and have your staff perform superbly well? Most people would say yes. Can you pay the same salaries and have your staff perform poorly? Yes. All right, on a scale of 0 to 10, if you look at your monthly payroll, how happy are you with the performance for that investment you're making each month? How happy are you with it? Tell us now, on the right. On a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you with that performance? Okay, right, I'm reading, so I'm seeing a 6, an 8, a 2, we need to talk. Okay, a 9, 7, a 3. All right, so it's a little bit all over the place. But look, I haven't seen any 10s yet. The question you've got to ask yourself is, how do you drive that higher level performance? Right? Are they being held accountable? Are the team very clear about what their metrics are, and what the critical drivers that they must hit are in order for the company to get its result? You're making an investment of, on the payroll numbers, I saw somebody at £12,000 a month. So that person is making an investment of almost £150,000 a year. Is it a good or bad investment? Most business owners have never created the scorecard. Right? And then how do you drive better performance? I think accountability is critical. But now let me ask you this. Who is the most important member of your team? And for almost everybody listening to this, the most important person is you. Right? You're the most important person. So are you being held accountable? Are you being held accountable to your actions? Are you being held accountable? Because look, I live in the real world. I don't perform at 100%, but I need to be held accountable. If I'm not, I significantly underperform. And I think it's important to pay attention to this. Think about it this way. He's retired now, but does Usain Bolt just turn up and run about a bit when he goes to training, or when he went to training since he's now retired? No. He's got a team of people that measure everything. Why? Because it was the feedback loop that allows his team to say, do we need to adjust this training plan? Okay? So, are the 3 keys to making it your best year ever? Number 1, let's come over here. Okay, number 1, we spoke about having scalable systems, a platform for growth. Number 2, having a profit execution plan. And number 3 is becoming a better business owner. Okay, what do I mean by that? What do I mean by that? What I mean is the 3 P's, remember from before, piss poor people, equal the 3 P's, which is piss poor performance. If you've got piss poor people, you've got piss poor performance. How do you get better people? You either train them better so they're more competent, or you hold them to a higher standard have a better culture, a more dynamic culture. And the most important person is you. So are you enhancing your skills? Are you enhancing your training in the key areas? Are you financially literate? Are you constantly honing your skills there? Are you staying on the cutting edge of marketing? Are you operationally, is your product better than it's ever been? The reason why you can't stay still is the market is always advancing. So if you're not advancing as well, you will be left behind. Think about it this way. In today's information-heavy, kind of overwhelming society, I don't think information's dead. I think the people that can screen through the bullshit or the information and identify the key nuggets are the ones who make the biggest difference. Okay, so I'm looking down at my notes here. What have I got? So, yeah, so you don't want piss poor people. You want a world-class team, both of employees, but people to hold you accountable, right? And I think it's essential, especially for if you are a busy business owner. Chances are you might be the most successful person in your network. You might make significantly more money than all your family that you spent time with over Christmas. Now, that's okay, but metaphorically, it's not going to drive higher level of performance. Okay, for example, when I was in my late teens, I played squash to quite a high level, and I was a aspiring professional squash player before a few injuries got in my way. But at that time, about 30% of the top 20 people in the world all trained in one little club in North Yorkshire. Why was that? Because they had a higher standard. And by hanging out together and playing together and training together, they drove up the overall performance of all concerned that were in that little cohort, if you will. At one time, the number 1 and number 2 best players in Yorkshire were also the number 1 and 2 best players in England, who were also the number 1 and number 2 best players in the world. You know, it was a whole nother level. So are you surrounding yourself with smart people? That's not people who necessarily agree with you. In fact, I'm hugely in favor of hanging around with people that I disagree with. You know, without getting off on too much of a tangent, I think there's so much bullshit around about cryptocurrency, or particularly Bitcoin, in the recent past, and I'm not a terribly big fan. However, I'm not well educated on it. So I sought out somebody who's in a mastermind group that I participate in, a mergers and acquisitions mastermind. A gentleman called Siam Kidd, and I know Siam very well, and we go back a little way, and we spend some time together. But he has diametrically opposing views on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin than I do. But because I respect him, I proactively sought him out and engaged him in order to figure out the truth. Right? I think in a lot of cases, business owners, when we become successful to any degree, our ego gets in the way and it prevents us from moving forward. I think that ego is the enemy. I think that ego is about who's right. Truth is about what's right. And so the reason why I proactively seek out people who disagree with me, who I think are smart and that I can have healthy conversations with, is to try and expand my thinking. And I think that's absolutely critical, that you get around people that expand your thinking. So let me look down some of these case studies now. So for example, Dale Allen, one of my mastermind members in the software business, he was my mastermind member of the year last year, actually, because his profits, which were already 6 figures, rose by over 400% in 1 year. And he said, the difference that makes the difference is surrounding myself with people who make sure I don't do something stupid. One of my mentors said this to me, and it stuck with me. All my problems started out as a good idea. I mean, think about that. You think about taking on this employee or investing in this new thing or this new marketing campaign or whatever was a great idea until it turned out not to be. It turned out to be a nightmare. When I think about Marcus Fitzgerald, who runs Richmond Oak, which is builds oak and wood-based conservatories and buildings, his revenue this year was up to 1.12 million in 2017, which is 122% growth on last year. In fact, in the last quarter, he did up more than $500,000 in revenue, which was more than he did in the whole of 2016 combined. And Marcus, and I've missed the exact note of it, but for Marcus, it was about having people to bounce ideas off, having the right critical drives in place, knowing what KPIs to measure, and he's changed everything about his business. If I look at Salvatore runs Vivo Life, which is a plant-based supplement company. And their revenues in the last 12 months went from around 40,000 a month to upwards of £160,000 per month. What was the difference that made the difference? Number one, they focused down on the core products that drove everything. And number two, they got mass distribution. So they didn't distract their focus, they more narrowly focused. If I look at Stephen Becky Dennis, who run Fitness Flex down in Basingstoke, I was thrilled when I spoke to them recently during one of our private calls that they had the best year ever, but specifically they in a recent month, November, the last full month, they had the highest revenue, highest profit, and highest cash on hand that they ever had. Why was that? Because they were being held accountable to the specific narrow points. When I think about Alexis Kingsbury, who runs Parentpreneur Accelerator and Spider Gap, which is a 360 feedback tool, clients all over the world. In the last 4 years, his profit has increased by over 2,100%. What do these people have in common? They're all learners. They're always constantly trying to improve, constantly trying to grow. Here it is in a nutshell. If you want to have a better business, become a better business owner. So, when I look back, and I will try and make this work magically, when I look back at all the things that we've discussed on this call, let me summarize and then give you a few key actions, okay? We said, why do most businesses fail? Okay, they have a lack of scalable systems, so they couldn't handle the growth even if it was thrown at them and handed to them on a plate. They have a lack of a profit execution plan. Listen, guys, if you can't make it work on paper, the chances of you making it work in reality are zero. And they've got piss poor people. But normally the worst person is the business owner because they're the leader, right? So then, inversely, how do you make it your most profitable year ever? You have a platform for rapid growth, and that's business value maximization. So when I buy a company, I won't buy a company unless I believe I can treble its value, the worth of the company, in a 12 to 24 month period. But I'll tell you how to get access to that at the end because that wasn't the topic for this webinar. Number two is a clear profit execution plan. If you can't make it work on paper, if you haven't got a budget, if you haven't got a clear documented strategic plan, which is a way to get over, under, or around the obstacles that are currently preventing you from having the revenue and profitability and the growth that you want, the chances of it happening in reality are slim to none. And number three, and right, that was about you saying, but number three was become a better business owner. Look, if you want better results, become a better business owner, become more highly skilled. What's the key to that? I think my friend Daniel Priestley says it quite nicely. Environment dictates performance. Hang around some world-class people. I'm just looking at my notes to see what I've missed, if anything. I think a lot of people they don't hang around with people that challenge them, that are willing to disagree with them. To go to Napoleon Hill, what is a definition of a mastermind? Well, the definition of a mastermind is a group of people that are all have one common purpose. How do you surround yourself with business owners that are ambitious, that are looking to grow, looking to expand? I love some of our mastermind meetings when we have people that are legally trained and have got a background as lawyers or financial directors or running multi-million-pound marketing agencies. They've all got different ways of doing things. That doesn't make one person right and one person wrong. It just adds more strings to the bow. Business is very, very complex. Anybody who tries to tell you otherwise is crazy. How do you get a competitive advantage? I think the more ways you've got, the more ways you give yourself to succeed, the better. And I think that you should constantly be trying to elevate your peer group and watch out for the menace of the mean, right? In other words, people will bring themselves back in line with the average that's around them. And are you expanding your peer group? Are you expanding the quality of business owners around you? So, I've got to get the right screen again. So, if this webinar resonated with you, if you want to get a clear profit execution plan, I'd like to encourage you to find out more about my Systemize and Scale workshop. Okay, we've got only 10 places left available. It's a small workshop, and the outcome for this workshop is for you to leave with a profit execution plan. Also in this workshop, we cover the business value maximization system, and many of the delegates on this are my existing mastermind members who come back to make sure they've got the plan in place to make 2018 as profitable as possible. If you want to find out more about it, go to danbradbury.co.uk/apply. danbradbury.co.uk/apply. And you can find out all the information about the 2-day Systemize and Scale workshop coming up in January. We've got, as I said, at the time we're going to this webinar, we've got 10 spaces available. It's capped at 16, I think, 16 or 20, somewhere in that range. It's a small workshop. The purpose is that we go really deep. The purpose is that we help you get a profit execution plan for your business. I think most business owners want the result, but it's fake ambition. I mean, really, it's bullshit. They say they want results, but they're not willing to do the work. It's a bit like, metaphorically, somebody looking in the mirror saying, I wish I was thinner, I wish I was sexier, I wish I, had six-pack abs. I think it's very easy to say that, but very few people are willing to consistently watch their diets and consistently get in the gym and work out the right way, get educated, be smart. You're going to be working hard anyway. So what I say is you're going to be working hard anyway. Why not get the best possible returns? Right? And that's what this is about. How do you expand your peer group? How do you get yourself more skilled? How do you get yourself a better profit execution plan to make 2018 the best it can be? And if anything I've said on this webinar resonates with you, I'm going to just try and move this around so you can see. Go on over to danbradbury.co.uk/apply and find out more about our upcoming 2-day Systemize and Scale workshop. Just looking at the comments, and Mars, feel free to jump in because I'm reading selectively over your shoulder. But my mastermind programs, if you're interested in our mastermind programs, I'd still encourage you to take this as a step first.
Links in the chat box.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Miles. The link's in the chat box. We'd encourage you to come to this workshop first. The reason why is, I'm not big on selling hard into mastermind programs. That's not my primary income source. And, of all the people that I mentioned to you on the webinar, so Chris Matthews, been around 5-6 years. Marcus Fitzgerald, I think, is going into his 3rd year. Alexis, been around for 4 years. Dale, 3 years. Salvatore, 1.5 years, I think. Steve Dennis, 2 years. Right? The people have been around for years, and the reason why is because they're getting results. 82% of my private mastermind clients had their best year ever in 2017. If you want to know more in depth how they did it, if you want to have us hold your hands and help you with the profit execution plan, go on over to danbradbury.co.uk/apply and find out more. Remember, there are limited spaces in the workshop, and we mean it. So I'm beyond doing the fake scarcity bullshit. Once the places have gone, they've gone. I don't know how many people are even on this live stream, but if you've gone over to danbradbury.co.uk/apply, we will process the applications in the order that they're received. So I'll go to open Q&A in a second, but somebody's asking, well, how much is it? Because it doesn't say on the page. So I'll tell you right now, because there's no discounts. The price that everybody pays to attend that workshop is just £500 plus VAT. It's £500 plus VAT for the 2-day workshop. But you will leave with a profit execution plan. And really, it's a way for you to test us out, us to test you out to see if you might be a fit for one of our ongoing mastermind programs. Because I think having the plan is critical and you can execute it yourself. But in my experience, the real value is from the network of people that you surround yourself with. It's from the people that you connect with. It's the people that have got insights, connections. They know how to raise finance that you don't have. So get yourself on over to that page, danbradbury.co.uk/apply right now to find out more. Okay, so I just realised, Miles, it's been going very dingy in here because we've been doing this webinar at dusk. Yeah, why not? We could have done that really. If I'd been smart and I gave you the message silently, I would have said, and it's going to be like, it will be illuminating. So that's the key thoughts, guys. When I wrote down on my technical notepad, preparing for this webinar, what are the key messages that I want to drive home? Number one, you need a scalable system. You need to have your business on a platform that's scalable. Now, that wasn't the place for that in this webinar. We do cover business value maximization at the Systemize and Scale workshop, but that was kind of point one, just for you to have that in your mind. Most people aren't ready for scalability. Number two, you need a profit execution plan. You know what, and I know you're impatient and want to get on with it, but you know what, that's what most small business owners say and think, and they don't have a profit execution plan, and that's why they get shitty arse results. That's the difference between small business and big successful businesses that are sustainably profitable. And number three is you need a world-class peer group. Look, guys, business is tough enough. If you're going to do something you've never done before, I think it makes sense to surround yourself with people that have either achieved the results that you want or going, certainly at the very least, going in the direction that you're going. And that's why people on this webinar is for people that are already doing at least multi-six figures in revenue. If you want to hang out in a peer group of the smartest, best, fast-growing business owners in the UK of 6, 7, and in one case 8-figure revenues, come and hang out with us. But the place to start is the Systemize and Scale workshop. Many of our existing mastermind members re-attend this workshop, and it's a way for you to get the foundations that you really need. At the end of the day, guys, it's 2 days of your time and only £500. It's an absolute no-brainer if it can allow you to get results like some of our clients, 100, 200, 300, 500, 1,000, 2,000% increase in profit. Not revenue, profit. We're all about sustainable profit and real wealth. But anyway, I've been blathering on. Comment below if you've got any questions. If not, we are 3 minutes of time to go, but we'll see how we're doing. Do we have any questions, Miles? Did we get it working? Because we were struggling with the chat box earlier.
Yeah, we're all good. We've got a question from Conan, who probably knows the answer to this himself, but he said, should you sacrifice profit in the short term to grow turnover?
Oh, good question. So, yeah, I wish I could give a simple, short answer, but I will do it the best I can. Should you sacrifice profit for turnover? It depends. Ultimately, if a business produces profit and turns that profit into cash, it can only do one of three things with it, Conan. Number one is it can dividend those out. And that's a way of really saying thank you to the... I'm desperate to try and make this video fit in the slide. It can say thank you to the shareholders in the form of a dividend. Number two is it can pay down its debt. Why might it pay down its debt? To make the business more secure and to reduce its borrowing costs, therefore maximizing profitability for the future. Or number three is it can reinvest those profits for future growth. So I am a fan of reinvestment. I think that your business needs to be reinvested. Most businesses need to be reinvested in. The key question, Conan, and this is why it's not a straight answer, is invest into what? How much money and into what? I mean, statistically speaking, one of our mastermind members actually calculated he had almost a 10-to-1 ROI on the investment he put into himself over the previous 5 or 6 years. That basically he was getting something like £9.50 for every pound he invested in himself, his own training, his own development in the following 12 months. But the reality is you can make good investments, you can make bad investments. I think that a lot of business owners, Conan, shoot themselves in the foot because they justify by, oh yeah, well I need to reinvest into this for growth. And they don't. They make bad hires or bad decisions just because, well, I need more growth, I need to spend more money. I'm in favour of investing and developing the right skills and tools, or buying the right assets, or hiring the right people to help you grow. But hands down, I think the most important investment you can make, Conan, is into your education. Okay? I hope that helps. Mike, got time for one more, Miles? Have you got one more?
Yeah. Alex Emerson, who now says, how do I improve my financial literacy?
Good question. So, hey Alex, how are you? How do you improve your financial literacy? So, I presume you're looking for an answer that's slightly more, less self-serving than come on the Systemize and Scale workshop, or hang around people who are financially literate. But truth be told, that probably is the answer, right? There are many ways that you can do it. But Alex, I know because we spoke not that long ago that you have a bookkeeper, you have an accountant, you've got a great business there. But I know, and I won't breach confidence, but I know that the margins are being squeezed a little bit, and you're going through growth. Okay, so you're going through growth. How do you get financially literate? Well, if I were to ask you, Alex, and feel free to chat back, if you look at the 5 business owners that are you're closest to, or your 5 friends that are closest to you, that you spend the most time with, how many of those would you describe as financially literate? And I'm going to guess that the answer is 0, or 1 or 2. And correct me if I'm wrong, Alex, and Miles pipe up if Alex is still on there and she says. But so you know what? I become your accountant's best friend. I think that most people are very terribly served by their accountants, but they don't get to know them. When I wanted to learn how to buy other companies, I went and joined a local angel network. Angels are people that basically with money that invest in and buy other companies. And I did that to develop a peer group. I joined a mastermind program specifically for mergers and acquisitions. And there's about 14 of us in the group, but about 8, 9, 10 go to meetings 6 times a year, and we get together in London to talk about deals, and we're a network, and we refer each other to different accountants and lawyers and people selling businesses and people buying businesses and ways of raising finance. So I wish I could point you to the one magical source, Alex, but I do think it's, all right, who do you know that's financially literate, and how do you spend more time around them? I think there's plenty of books that you can read. I think that you can find loads of free stuff online, but how do you cut through the crap? Find financially literate and sit down and ask them 20 questions. And best place to start might be your accountant. Okay, got any crackers to finish us with, Miles?
I think that's it. Alex had followed up by saying she agreed, and then she said, what numbers specifically should you work out each month, quarter?
All right, good. So, final question. So, Alex, I'm in favor of having 5 scorecards, but every month a P&L and a balance sheet. Okay, and then the other 2 that I'd say for now is I would have a cash flow forecast and I would have a budget. And if you don't know what they are or how they work, maybe that's the place to start. And they are, in my opinion, the 4 probably most critical scorecards that you can have for your business. Mine are constantly open for all my companies, and I'm obsessed about them. And since I've learned to be financially literate, it transformed everything. And if you want to know more about that, you'll learn a lot more at the Systemize and Scale workshop. So go on over to danbradbury.co.uk/apply, and that's right. And you can find out more. Bear in mind that there's only 10 spaces remaining. We've got a January date, so this one of the reasons for this webinar was to fill the remaining spaces in that workshop, which is in January. Go in, fill in your details, and we'll jump on the phone with you to see that you're a right fit, and we will take it from there. So anything particularly burning that I missed, Miles, or I need to add before we end? All right, we're all good. Well, thank you very much, guys. I hope you enjoyed this session. Comments, let us know what you thought, let us know your questions, and we'll be in touch. All right, bye for now.